So bloodthirsty terrorist Benjamin Netanyahu and people from his medieval gang of barbarians have finally acknowledged the famine in Gaza, a famine caused by these same terrorists. While acknowledging the starvation, the war criminal facing an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court also made a stunning confession, a confession about his own crime. He effectively called himself a Nazi. On the other hand, a historic protest rally took place on the famous Sydney Harbour, where more than 300,000 people marched in solidarity with people of Gaza. Also joining them was the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. Now let's look at these developments in greater detail. Netanyahu took to social media to request the International Red Cross to consider supplying food to Israeli hostages after Hamas released a video of one of its prisoners.
Very good afternoon. We're also going to bring you some other breaking news in the last couple of minutes from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who says that he has spoken with the International Red Cross's regional head and requested its involvement in providing food and medical care to hostages that have been held in Gaza. This is what the Israeli Prime Minister has tweeted in the last couple of minutes, saying that he spoke to the head of the Red Cross delegation in our region, Julian Assange, and requested his immediate involvement in providing food to our hostages and supplying them with medical treatment. I told him clearly the lie of starvation propagated by Hamas is spreading worldwide, but the reality is that systematic starvation is being carried out against our hostages, men and women who are subject to severe and cruel physical and psychological abuse. The world cannot remain indifferent to the shocking images that are reminiscent of Nazi crimes.
Did you notice anything here? This war criminal, who ought to have been arrested a long time ago and sent to jail for the rest of his life, just made a confession. He said that the world cannot remain indifferent to shocking images that are reminiscent of Nazi crimes. His words. So let's now look at the impact of his words. Images coming from Gaza have been shocking, no doubt about that. We all have been aghast by the suffering of people. But who is responsible for this suffering? So now that he himself is calling those images shocking and reminiscent of Nazi crime and making a spectacular confession, isn't it time that the global fraternity got united to implement the arrest warrant of the International Criminal Court? I'm not surprised why this war criminal has deleted that tweet now. But in the digital age, is it really possible to erase your social media activity? For months, this terrorist denied the existence of a famine and starvation and called it Hamas propaganda. He was supported by his Western backers and their propaganda outlets. Remember, I told you only a few days ago that Netanyahu doesn't care about the Israeli hostages, because if he did, he wouldn't be dropping American bombs indiscriminately on Gaza for the last 2 years. Even a 5-year-old would tell you that these bombs will kill both Palestinians and Israeli hostages. Likewise, when you starve the entire population of Gaza, even Israeli captives will suffer from lack of food and water. As soon as Hamas released the video, Netanyahu swung into action. Not because he has suddenly started to care about them. He is just worried about the adverse PR in the settler colony, even though he knows that a large Israeli population can be easily fooled by spreading hatred for Palestinians. Extraordinary visuals of people starving and their emaciated bodies have shocked even the hardcore Israeli supporters. Listen to this woman on Sky News.
I don't believe a word that any Israeli government official says now, sadly, because as I said, I did support this conflict at the very beginning. I thought Israel had the right to respond. But when you see the footage and when you just read the maths about the number of calories that have been allowed per citizen, that have been not allowed since the war started, let alone since April or May, when the trucks have not been allowed in, it is evident that the maths don't stash up. There is a minuscule percentage of the food necessary to feed that population, and the only way they have of eating is what Israel allows in. So, no, I don't believe a word that Israel says at this point, and they have become international pariahs. And I'm afraid that Israelis, and my heart goes out to Israelis, many of whom have been traumatized by this war, and some are still related to hostages who have been taken, some of whom haven't been returned, or people who've been killed. I'm afraid to say that the Israeli citizens will pay the price of this for generations.
Nothing worries this war criminal and his gang of depraved terrorists more than the negative global publicity. Hence, this posturing by contacting the Red Cross. Though Hamas has agreed to let the Red Cross act as an intermediary to supply food to these hostages, my question is, what happened to these genocidal maniacs' earlier stand on not allowing Hamas members any access to food? So it was never about Hamas allegedly looting food supplies. It was clearly to punish the entire population of Gaza and carry out the ethnic cleansing of the territory. Also, who will guarantee the safety of Red Cross members? Israeli terrorists just today, dropped American bombs on the headquarters of Palestinian Red Crescent, killing their aid workers.
Hospital officials say Israeli forces have killed at least another 27 Palestinians seeking aid as the starvation crisis in the territory grows. The Palestine Red Crescent Society says one of its staff members, named as Omar Mansour Isleem, was killed in an Israeli attack on their headquarters in Har Yunis. The Israeli army says it is looking at the incident. It all comes as the UK government is planning to get seriously ill or injured children out of Gaza and bring them to the UK for medical treatment. Like other international news organisations, Israel doesn't allow the BBC to report independently from inside the territory.
This came amidst the United Nations releasing an extraordinary video of Israeli terrorists killing starving Palestinians after luring them with food. This was a part of a report that BBC's Jeremy Bowen filed. Some of the visuals are so graphic that I cannot carry that report here. You can watch that report on our Telegram channel. Details are on the screen. Many believe that Hamas trapped Netanyahu by releasing the video of one of the captives. This single-handedly drew the attention of even its adversaries to the suffering of Palestinians. Netanyahu and his backers may continue to project Hamas as evil, but this week we saw another setback to this campaign by a Jewish lawyer representing Hamas for the last 30 years. Yes, you may be shocked, as I was, to know that the lawyer representing Hamas for the last 3 decades is a Jewish man. His name is Stanley Cohen. This is what he wrote yesterday, and I quote, "For 30 years, I have stood with Hamas as a lawyer. I have spent thousands of hours with my clients. I have known almost all of its founders and all of its political leadership. I have represented them in domestic and international courts. I have seen nothing but principle." End quote. Pay attention to his last sentence. He's seen nothing but principle. And this is coming from a Jewish lawyer. Meanwhile, more than 300,000 people staged a historic march on Sydney Harbour Bridge. Also joining them was WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Plenty of respect for this crusader who has devoted his entire life to fighting for truth and justice. As expected, corrupt local administration and law enforcing agencies had stopped the organizers of this march from going ahead with their protest rally, but they approached the Supreme Court and won their battle there. But the outpouring of support for people of Gaza also showed the change in mood amongst the average Aussies towards the ongoing genocide by Israelis in Gaza. It's time people across the world rose against anyone who dares to still justify this cruelty perpetrated by genocidal maniacs from the settler colony. You have to do this because you owe this to your children. Surely, you do not want your children to grow in a world ruled by morally corrupt and mentally deranged politicians who have zero respect for international law and international humanitarian law. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.